Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name's Joshua Ross. I'm the Enrolments Manager here at Fourth Rev for the LSE Data Analytics Career Accelerator. And I'm going to be hosting you for the next hour for our Ask Me Anything. Really excited to have our guest with us today, Tim Durgan, who we'll get to in a moment. I just want to start briefly with an overview of the program, and then we've got a bit of housekeeping before I will introduce Tim. So today we're going to be talking about Tim's experiences. He's a graduate of the program, so we're really going to delve into his experience, how it's helped him from a career perspective. And really excitingly, we've been wanting to do this for a very long time. He's actually going to be able to present a little bit on his employer project that he completed in the program as well. In terms of, for you that aren't familiar with the Data Analytics Career Accelerator, it is a 6-month program, and it's geared towards helping you achieve your unique career outcomes within data analytics. So whether you're looking to enter data analytics for the first time, you might already have some skills and you're looking to build on that. So some of those outcomes can involve landing employment at a new employer. It can be a promotion with your current employer, or we'll delve into this with Tim, but it could also be starting your own business as well that involves data analytics. There's a few ways that the Career Accelerator will help you achieve that. We very much view it as a holistic approach in supporting you. This is an LSE program, so the program and the content has been led and designed by the London School of Economics and Political Science, uniquely in collaboration with industry. So Tableau and GitHub have collaborated on the build to make sure what you learn is practical and industry aligned. So for you, in terms of outcomes, you will receive a certificate of completion from the LSE, which is incredibly useful when looking to demonstrate where you've studied to prospective employers. Alongside the certificate of completion from the LSE, you will complete practical projects. With the collaboration of industry, we very quickly removed the idea of exams as assessments and replaced them with 4 practical projects. 3 of those projects are individual based that align with 3 6 or 7 week courses that you will complete. So as you learn the content and the skills in data analytics, you will then apply that to an individual project, and there are 3 of those. The program culminates in an employer project, which is what we're going to discuss in further detail with Tim, amongst other things. But you'll work in groups of, say, 4 to 6 students. We have a pool of real businesses that we work with on the program, and they'll give us a unique business challenge. So you'll deal with a live data set or a unique data set and a business challenge and go about solving that, presenting at the end, as you would if you were in the workplace. So it's a great way to apply everything you've learned and give you the great confidence that what you've learned is practical and relevant to utilize in your unique circumstances after the program. So that's 4 projects. They culminate in a digital portfolio of evidence. So yes, you have the certificate from the LSE, which holds great value, but you can then actually storytell and visualize and showcase the skills, the projects, the experiences you have through this digital portfolio of evidence. And finally, we provide executive style career coaching. So we look to support you holistically, as I said. A part of that is you'll have a career coach that will be working towards firstly helping you really understand and identify what that next step is, but then empowering you with the skills and tools you need to be self-sufficient to achieve that outcome. We completed a survey at the beginning of this year, and of the respondents, 87.5% of the students achieved their intended career outcome within 12 months of starting the program. And then within that, there was even another statistic there. I think it was 60% of the students achieve their career outcome prior to completing. Everyone's circumstances are unique. It's not a given that you necessarily would achieve that prior to completing, but it does show that dependent on your circumstances, the impact that the program can have can be really immediate. So those are the main outcomes of the program. We're going to talk more about it in the context of Tim and his experience. Before we do that, just a few housekeeping rules. So the session will run for an hour. I've taken up 5 minutes of it, and it will be recorded. So if you need to drop out, we would love you to stay, but if you can't, it will be recorded, and that'll be sent around afterwards. Highly encourage you to post questions in the Q&A section. I can already see one, which is great. Keep them coming. We've got some questions for Tim. He's going to do a bit of a presentation, and then at the end, we'll have ample time to get through these questions. So as they come up, please post the questions in the Q&A function. You can leave any additional comments in the chat function, which I know you have, in highlighting where you're all based around the world. There are links in the chat regarding the program brochure if you want to look at some specifics, booking a call with an enrollment advisor, which is a crucial part of the actual process for you. And firstly, understanding, is this program right? But if you do want to look at applying, or you're considering it, it is a required step. So there'll be a link for you to access our calendar and book a time with one of our great enrollment advisors. And there's also the eligibility survey in the chat already. It's 2 minutes. It's a great way for you to just briefly self-assess if the program could be relevant. Of course, always welcome to book a time with us and really speak in detail about your circumstances. Let's jump in. Tim, welcome. I'd ask you to, if you can, turn your camera on and a brief introduction about yourself.
Thank you very much. I usually look better with the camera off, but I'll do you a favor. Yes, I am Tim. I am based in Hong Kong, but as you can probably hear from my accent, I'm not from Hong Kong. I'm from the depths of West Yorkshire. I mid-30s, so I just turned 36 a couple of months ago, and I've spent my entire career, essentially since being 20 years old, in media agencies, advertising agencies, be that the likes of WPP and Group M, and if you know those kind of companies, all the way through to independents, to social content, and then mainly the last 6 years been in digital performance in Hong Kong. And as I'll go into a bit more detail later on, I've just recently started my own business as well. So it's been quite the journey, particularly in the last 8 months, which I'll go into detail about it in the course of this next hour or so. But yeah, now here I am.
Yeah, great. Happy to have you. And you've spoken about your background. What prior experience or exposure did you have to data prior to doing this program?
I had a little bit of an interesting career path because before I started my business, I was the head of strategy for Asia for a digital performance agency. So I would be looking at data. I mean, I was okay at Tableau and decent-ish at Google Data Studio, which is now Looker. So I was always interested in kind of finding insights from data, and that was kind of my job, really. But the data I was working with was not necessarily complex data. It was things like social listening, it was things like search volumes and news articles and whatever. But I actually, when I joined the company I just left, we were only about 80 people around Asia. And then when I left, they were around about 380, I think. But my career went from looking after kind of campaigns and media, and I ended up looking after the consultancy business. And I realized quite quickly that the people who are in my team could do all these things that I couldn't do technically. And so there's an ongoing challenge with that, where I realized that although my skills would be to go talk to clients and pitch things, the reality was it was a bit of a challenge both for me and the team that I was leading, knowing that they could do 100 million things more than I could do in my own department. So that was kind of a little bit of an ongoing challenge. And then as I pivoted towards strategy, I also then realized that I didn't really know anything about data. Like I've never been into Python before in my life, not once ever. And I could barely do an SQL query. I could understand what it does, but I've never done any of it. And I realized quite quickly that I was just getting left behind. with that incidents at work as well, but also just generally seeing things like AI and coding and so I just realized I have to do something about this now, because I'll get to 40 years old and I will be out the door basically, and I will be not unemployable, but it'll be very difficult for me to then get into an ever-changing space, particularly in advertising, because everything's going that way and I'm stuck here essentially. So that's why I decided to actually look at the course in the first place, because I was completely out of my depth
Yeah.
in my own job. So that was a challenge. So yeah, that's why I kind of went on the course in the first place.
Right. Well, good on you for identifying that, and then actually taking action. From my experience and the team's experience, very common story in terms of your background and what you're looking to achieve. So to kind of summarize what you said, you had an understanding of the importance of data, the insight side you were really good at, but no prior coding experience at all. And it's an interesting one you say, because this is quite common, is individuals at your stage of your career, is that you've got people in a team that potentially you might end up or already are managing or will be managing, and they've got all of the technical nous that you don't. And to actually effectively manage people like that, you need to have the technical understanding as well. So, yeah, very common. And we get a range of people doing the program in terms of their prior coding experience. There are many like yourself where you have an understanding of the importance of data, but not necessarily any exposure to the coding skills that we'll teach in the program. And then we'll discuss. It's a challenge. It's designed to be challenging, but the rewards there if you can achieve it. So when we talk about challenges, how did you handle the challenges of starting from scratch in coding and data analysis?
I think actually, well, number one, you got to be patient. And I'm not renowned for being a patient person, as my parents and my girlfriend will tell you. But when you first look at actually what I did find in the first 6 weeks was it was actually quite easy to get going. I mean, there's parts of it that are quite difficult. I mean, different coding languages are more difficult than others, and I found that SQL was that's just really kind of a pain to get going. But once you got into it, it worked a lot. Python's easy to get going, and then it gets harder. So there's different variances of it. But actually, the course teachers and the program itself was so clear. And we would have sessions every twice a week to go through things. One of them would be the overall reason why this is important, what SQL is, what Python is, etc. And then we'd have another one on the Thursday that would go through it in detail and say this is how you do this and structure this and everything. And you could always talk to the course tutors as well. And we actually quite early on, we started up a WhatsApp group of about 50 of us, I think, 40 of us, all in the same course. And we all just bounced ideas off each other, asked for help. So that was actually really quite easy to get going. Surprisingly easy, I thought, for myself, being completely illiterate of everything. But it is designed to get you feeling quite confident quite early. So yeah, I actually find there weren't really challenges in that sense, apart from SQL not uploading any of my CSVs, which was a real pain. But then actually, yeah, it was a test of patience a lot of the time. But once you got it and you cracked it, like the feeling of unadulterated joy of getting a code that works was so good. So yeah, it's a challenge to begin with. It sounds overwhelming. It sounds like a real stressful thing, but the course of the people around it are designed to help you along the way. And it's not like in the first 6 weeks you have to write a whole Python SQL, everything like it. The steps are good. So yeah, it was much easier than I thought it would be to get going. And within about a month, I felt much more comfortable just from going from 0 to 1. So that's a big confidence boost. And you just go from there and you build on that as well.
Right. Yeah, that was going to be my question, is how long did it take you to feel comfortable? And so in your instance, you said they're about a month. And I think you highlighted some really important things there in the sense of, again, it's not easy. It's designed to be challenging. And what the program intends to help you achieve is that you are self-sufficient, that these skills that you obtain, you can then actually do yourself. And so if we're there spoon feeding that too, you're probably not going to learn as much. You've gone through a lot of trial and error, frustrations and challenges, but where necessary, you've utilized the support available to you along the way. And so to be clear, just for everyone, there's some live sessions with your facilitators that you can access on a weekly basis. There's your peers that you can lean on, as Tim spoke about. And you can also book one-on-one sessions with the facilitators as well during the program. Just on that, what were the sort of the bonds that you built with your peers and the people that you learnt with? Good networking opportunities?
Yeah, so there is a graduation event thing at the end. It's in November, which I'm still trying to get to for other things. So actually, the overall group of around 45, 50 people was for the first three parts of the assessments. So they were all individual assessments, but everyone was kind of bouncing ideas off each other, helping this and helping that. And people all around the world as well. We had some people in Shanghai, I'm in Hong Kong, there's some people in Malaysia, a lot of people in London. So we're all just throwing ideas out there and helping each other. And then when we broke into the smaller teams for the employer project, there was 6 of us, I think. And then we worked basically every day. We kind of chat to each other and go on calls every day. And I think that community, number one, is a lot of those other guys are now looking to pivot their careers as well. Some people worked in or are working in restaurants and bars. Some people are working as COOs in companies. Some people are pivoting from one thing to the other. But that sense of community has been really, really good. And even since then, actually, I've helped a couple of people kind of build their CV stories, because my skill sets have always been around storytelling and strategy and all this kind of thing. It's nothing to do with detail at all. But then there's other people who I've introduced to people I know in the MarTech world, some people who could be doing some contract work for stuff that I'm trying to do. So that sense of community is actually really, really strong. And I would say probably in terms of long term, even if I never do any coding in my life ever again, those people that I've kind of worked with along that journey are, number one, been really, really good to work with, have really pushed my boundaries, and hopefully vice versa. And then I will be seeing them all in London in person. So I've worked with them for 6 months and never actually met them in person. So I'm really looking forward next month to actually getting back and actually seeing them in the flesh. But there's definitely within the realms of possibility that we'll all be working together, or at least some of them will be working together in the next 2 or 3 years, or with people I know, because they can get jobs and everything else. So it's been really valuable from that side of things. And although it's a 6 months course, it is a little bit like when you're at university and you're still friends with that uni mate that you knew 10 years ago. You do get that sense of community from this as well. It's not just like you're just thrown in by yourself and you leave by yourself.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a common fear because it's fully online that potential students feel that it might be isolating, and the important thing is that as best as possible, the program gives you the opportunities to network, engage with peers, and then that's on you as the individual to obviously utilize that as best as possible. But if we think about impact, you're thinking of flying back, and as a part of that, going to graduation. So that alone, flying from Hong Kong to London as a part to go to your graduation indicates the impact that's had for you, which is really great, and some of the connections that you've built. What about skills? So you spoke that you're really capable when it comes to storytelling already. What were the skills that you found were most valuable in the program? And specifically that helped you launch your new business. So as an outcome of completing, that's what you achieved. So tell us a little bit about that as well, obviously, as well as in the skills that you obtained to help you launch that business.
Yeah, I think it's not so much a skill, but I think one of them just being general confidence. Because going from feeling like I'm, feeling left behind, this and everything else, to then getting within about 7 months later starting up an AI business, that's a massive change already. So having the confidence that I could go and do that, and I mean, obviously the coding and the data and everything else, those kind of harder skills, but the major one was really, I mean, I'm not going to be an AI coder in the near future at all, but it also helped me understand how code works, how it, the development times, because AI, everyone says things, even I actually say this a little bit, is, oh, it's just done for you. Everything's just done for you. It's great. It's not. So if somebody talking to me in a more technical way, talking around like pandas and data frames and this and that and all these kind of terms, now I can hold my own in those conversations, and I could then actually read quite comprehensive code and then at least understand actually that means this and that means that. So whilst I can do now not base, probably intermediate things, such as like audience clustering and this, that, and the other, I could now do a fair few of the services myself. So then I don't have to spend 30 grand on doing it for somewhere else. But then I can also look at the source code of something more complex, and at least if I couldn't have written it myself, at least I know what it says. So that's been actually really, really important. And and as I go through the rest of my life, I think just it's not necessarily about becoming the next Mark Zuckerberg and being the best coder in the world. It's about understanding what your business actually is. That's been the one. And then the second one has been just general leadership, actually. So for the last 6-7 years in my own career has been around kind of, we had leadership training. I was in a very senior position at work. And it's always been, I mean, I was relatively young for my career title, well, at least 3-4 years ago I was. And then, so a lot of the training that we've done there really came to fruition here. So it was a real case of where we really, really excelled was in the first week of the employer project. We just all sat down and said, right, what are you good at? What are you good at? And I just let the team just kind of go for it, kind of pick everything themselves. Because again, and if you ask people who know me well, I am not the quietest person in the world. So I did used to have a sense, like I did used to think that leadership is about speaking the most and this, that, and we'll do it that this way. And the more that I kind of went through this program, knowing that a lot of other people that was in my team had much better skills than me, a lot of other different things, it was really an interesting kind of teamwork, and because I was put into the team leader position for the last project. So I just took quite a bit of a backseat and just let everybody else flourish and do what they're really, really good at. And that, again, to launch a business, I think the skills that I learned just in connecting people and allowing people to kind of excel in what they're doing is a really, really important skill for business, because now I go out and make partnerships with companies that have got a lot of data, or a data scientist company, and being able to bring all those pieces together and those moving parts together. Some people way more technical than me, others more storytelling than me, but being able to then translate this to this, that's been a skill that, I mean, I was okay at already. I did all right in it generally in my life, but to be able to do that with a technical grounding to do that as well, it's just a whole different ballgame. So that's put me into a lot of good positions talking to CMOs, but also CTOs around my own product or my own service now. I've been able to kind of hold my own against both of those people, which I picked up on this course, really.
Great. There's a few things to unpack there. One of the things you said is that you had zero coding experience and understanding of the technical side, but then you just very confidently were discussing all of the jargon and the specifics of it. So the transformation is real in what you've learned in the last 6 to 8 months, which is impressive. The other part that stood out there is when we spoke about the skills, a lot of what you've highlighted are those human skills. And that's a focus of the program. It is natural to think, if you're going to do data analytics, that the sole focus is the technical side. And as you'd say, it is a very technical program, but you need to put that technical learning in the context of your human skills. And it was really interesting there with the level of experience that you have, that the main skills that you feel you took away from that were actually those human skills. That really stood out there. In terms of launching your business, what would that pathway have looked like if you didn't do this program? Do you think you would have launched it? How could it have differed?
I wouldn't have done it for certain. I wouldn't have known even where to begin, to be honest. And I most certainly wouldn't have had the credibility to even kind of be in that kind of ballpark. So another thing, because I did weigh this up as well originally back in, I guess, December, Jan. thinking around, do I just go on a Udemy or a Coursera? So try to do all these courses for less money. And I actually thought, you know what, the backing of the power of just the name of LSE and all that kind of full blown thing, rather than just looking at watching a video and trying to do it myself, watching another video and do it myself. The the weight of then to go and talking to a senior client at a major airline or a major hotel group and say, oh yeah, I've done this coding and I did it with LSE and da da da. That number one, that just adds a complete new level of engagement for a lot of clients to business. And then second, I wouldn't have done it. I would have just sat, just probably been comfortable in my own job and still thinking what I'm going to do. Because I would have not had confidence to go anywhere near something like AI and tech and everything else. So yeah, I would have done it. And actually having a business and do my own thing has been something I want to do since I was like 11 years old. It's like my dad was a businessman. He was a dentist back in, well, he's retired now, but I grew up seeing this entrepreneur in my house. And my brother he's on business as well in finance. And my other brother's a freelance creative. So we've all got that in us. And actually for a lot of time, for about 15 years, actually, maybe longer, when I got into my 30s, I was kind of thinking, I'm never going to do this, am I? I'm never going to do my own business. The world's, I'm in an industry that's going quicker than I can do, and et cetera, et cetera. So I kind of felt a little bit like I missed my opportunity a little bit here of like, I'm not going to live up to what my dad did or whatever. And then having these skills then kind of pushed me to doing what I'd always want to do and have the confidence to do rather than sit there at 40 thinking, I've let my dad down, I let this down, doing this. So it really did change the direction of travel of my life, really. And then so now I'm kind of going into big clients, having big conversations, I'm partnering with other agencies, but I'm also talking to some of the guys who are on my team around actually, could you do this and this and this, which is a quicker product, and then they're able to do it, and so am I. And like I said about the human element, one of my pitch slides actually has got a little Venn diagram of talks about human experience and artificial intelligence, and those two together actually is where you really grow businesses and people and everything else. And I think, and something I've always said actually for forever and ever and ever, one of my taglines in the office was, every single piece of information you see is human behavior. It's a signal of human behavior. So if you're talking about audience clustering, you're actually talking about people. You might have a chart that's this and that and circles. Yeah, it looks like that, but really you're talking about this person is like you and this person's like them. And so I've always committed from that angle, but I've always been able to explain other people's work and do storytelling, but now I can do it myself. And it's really added a lot of levels to what I can do and who can talk to, and like I said, the credibility as well. So it's been a real growth year, I think, this year for me.
Most definitely. That's incredible. And Taylor in the comments here has said, that's really inspiring. Well done. I think there's no better way to put it in terms of what you've achieved and how you've summarized that. That's really great in terms of the impact. As you spoke just there before we move on, around looking at, some smaller courses, some free courses, as a starting point, there's a time and place for all of those things, and they can be of benefit. But of course, um, how do you differentiate? There's a lot of people that are doing those courses, because they're free, and as you've spoken to, the reputation of LSE, but also confidence in the content that you're learning, and then the actual the facilitator support that you have. It sounds like obviously contributed to the confidence that built for you, and then the impact they had afterwards. Keen very shortly to jump into your employer project and let you talk a little bit more about that. I've got one more question, and I can see there's Q&A questions coming in, so appreciate that. Please keep sending them through. We will get to those. Any enrollment specific ones I'll answer after Tim's dropped off, but otherwise we'll get to the rest, and Tim and I will answer those. So please keep sending them through. There's a few that have already come through. Before we jump into the project, what advice would you give to someone who is considering doing the program that comes to it from a similar background to yourself in terms of no direct coding experience?
Be patient, number one. Don't lose a temper like I did through a computer across the room once. Actually, I was really surprised about actually how much I enjoyed it when I started doing it, because I'm really a person that's like, I hate Excel and I hate data, and it's just like, just detail is just not my thing. But the more I did it, the more I was like, this is actually quite fun, and you get kind of recommended like places to find new data points, and you get like communities you can join, like GitHub or Kaggle or whatever. And then I just ended up being this really kind of geeky data. Was like, this is really interesting. Oh, this is really interesting. And we did some stuff. One of the employee projects, one of the individual projects was related to kind of COVID and the healthcare system and stuff. And then I ended up going in all these different places, like, oh, this is COVID data. This is really interesting. Look at this. Look at that to this. Look at that to this. And then because I was quite interested always like the outcome, I actually found a lot of interest and a lot of joy in the process, which I never thought I would. So I would say embrace that. If you are a big picture and terrible detail person like me, then keep that big picture in mind and know that you're working towards that with the details. So you're coding X, Y, Z, but actually you're trying to find the right code for the right reason. Because the other thing that we would talk of a lot is whenever you build a model or when you do this or that, you're actually answering a business question. And that's the other thing that's really, really good about this course, actually, is we get given business questions and we have to answer a business question with data rather than just learn how to do this, learn how to do this. It was stuff like, yeah, you're trying to solve this business challenge around the audiences that this in this CRM, and you go, okay, that's this, that's this, that's this. And I really, really enjoyed that. That was really, really good fun. So yeah, be patient. Don't let it get on top of you. Don't worry about all the detail. All the information is there for you, and you'll learn all that. And embrace the people you will meet as well, because there's a lot of good friendships come out of this already. And then yeah, and just enjoy that process because it can be a little bit challenging to begin with. But the more you get into it, the more you practice it, the more you solve that problems and this and that, the more you actually really love it. And if I love it and I enjoyed it, then anyone can because I used to hate this stuff. So yeah, those would be the main bits of advice. Is yeah, embrace the whole thing, embrace the journey, the patience, the people, the learning, all of it.
Yeah, we've seen old Tim and now new Tim. Love.
Yeah. Oh, you'd have hated me a year ago, I promise. Yeah, it was tough. Yeah, but and also the growth. I think that's the one thing I keep looking back on is that just that feeling of kind of not panic, but not far off, thinking like I'm stuck here. I'm stuck in this job, and everyone's doing this, and everyone's gonna, and then there's more technical bit, and I'm just like a bit like lost as well. I think so. Jumping in and taking all my pre-existing skills from the last 30 years or 20 years and then adding this and putting it together because I thought they were kind of binary. Either you're a storyteller or you're a data person. Because there is a lot of people who are really good at data but can't really tell a story. A lot of people vice versa. And I just thought it was A or B for a long time. And so I just tell myself, I'm not a data person. I'm not very good at that. But you give it to me and I'll tell you a story around it. And now actually that's not true. I can do both. And although I'm still much more the story background, I can look at the business challenge, find out the story, and then go, right, to get to that, I need to do this, 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 and this. And then that was the way I looked at it, where some people look at it the opposite way. So it really, yeah, it really opened my eyes to my own abilities as well, actually. And I was surprised how much I could do in such a short space of time.
You're a testament as well to not sitting still and taking action, especially with how you felt, feeling stuck. You can feed into that sort of emotion and kind of remain stagnant, or you can take that step. And as you said, you've clearly highlighted the impact it's had in the last year, and that's all by taking that action. We were speaking before. You originally saw us on YouTube late last year, and you enrolled in January. So you confidently made that decision, and you've seen that impact really quickly. Yeah, in my conversations with thousands of students over the years, make sure you're making the right decision, but take that first step. And once you're in there, yeah, you'll start to see that value and that reward. You just don't want to sit stagnant for too long. Let's jump in. Let's get into the specifics of the employee project. If you're able to present, Tim, keen to hear more. This is a first for us.
Sure, I will. This is the exact presentation we did for the client as well. So this is not done just for this meeting. So you'll see kind of exactly how we presented it. So a little bit of the background on this. I'm not sure I've actually got the course background on this. Yeah, actually. So we had some key business questions. We had about a 3-4 page brief, and we did a briefing call with the client. So the client is Study Group. So Study Group are an educational facility that help people get into universities. So they were affiliated with, I think, about 15, maybe 20 universities around the UK. And they took in a lot of international students, and they were kind of that stepping stone between with the grades they had and the grades they needed to get to universities. So they had a big challenge. So it was really quite interesting because we got this data that was, some of it was COVID data and some of it wasn't. So then we had the first couple of things that we tried to do, well, number one, cleaning all the data anyway, because it's a bit all over the place, which took quite a long time. That's a fun part to know, actually, the cleaning stuff. But then we had to make a bit of a call early on to then say, do we do something with the COVID data in it, and basically have to caveat that there's going to be issues with it, or do we take a single year of data that's not COVID dependent and say, well, you've got caveats there because it's single year data. So even just stuff like that is like quite an interesting, important thing to just get your head around to begin with. And so when you're talking to businesses, now I'm talking to clients and prospects, is when I'm looking at taking in data over the last, say, 5 years for an airline, obviously a massive chunk of that is still COVID. So these kind of be really important questions that you have to ask up front. And obviously the earlier you know the data and you get those skills, the more educated that question could be. And we ended up doing 2 or 3 different versions of a model to see which, like, one based on like a 5-year data set and one based on 1 year's, and just thought which one's more suitable. So those kind of things are quite interesting. But the 3 major things they had were, they were seeing that students were dropping out in quite, well, not high rates, but higher than they would like. And so they didn't actually know, have a process to figure out who's at risk of dropping out. Because obviously when you get to an exam and you fail the exam, all right, I'm dropping out. But actually there are signals way, way earlier in that journey. So, and obviously I think the thing, every center had a different logic of tracking this kind of thing. There's no standardization at all. And we'll talk about that later on. So number one is at-risk students just drop out generally. The second problem they had was people who pass but don't meet the progression thresholds. So for example, you get B, C, C, but you want to go into Durham, and that needs ABB. Like they passed the course, but they didn't get to where they wanted to do. But for Study Group, that was technically a fail, even though students actually passed what they would have done to get into other places. So we had to then basically build a model that took in the actual place you were going to as well, because that was a big factor, which is not considered in the data set already. And then critical points in that journey. So can you spot the signs 4 weeks in, 8 weeks in, 12, 15, etc., etc., etc. Because there's big dropouts in a big couple of weeks, but those couple of weeks are like exam weeks. So obviously you need to know what's going on before that, it's too late. So those were the 3 major challenges that they had. And obviously we know the poor attendance leads to dropout, obviously. Right, that's true for anywhere. But what we did, we tried to then build out, we did build a live working model that identified high-risk students before they started attending modules. And we actually built 2 versions of this. We did it in like a phased approach. So again, like I said earlier, it's the business case is the most important thing. And you get marked like 40% of the mark, even maybe more, is actually how it applies to a business. So we talked about phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 being when you first enter into a course or a module, which is based on kind of regression models based on the data you would already have when they start, like demographics essentially. And then phase 2 was a live model that we did later on, which you'll see in a minute. So we basically made a working model within Python for the first phase, which is enrollment risk factors. And these were things like university rankings of where they want to go, because they said where they actually want to be. The PISA score, so we actually went externally and got these things ourselves. And again, that's another big thing that gets you a lot of points, is going to external sources and finding external data, which we did. I think we did quite well. Again, because we had people in the team who'd been in these kind of jobs already. So we only got the name of the university. We went and found the rankings of the year that they were trying to get into. We found a PISA score, which is, off my head, but it's like a proficiency score. I can't remember what it exactly means, but you can find it later. And then an average risk score, which we built. So we built basically an average risk score per student, which was a really interesting model. So then we categorized into clusters, and you will learn clusters on the course. That was in one of the in one of the modules. We looked at things like categorical variables, so demographics, and then we basically built a full machine learning model within Python that did it at scale, which is really good. So we also learned in the course around how to find out how accurate your models are. So you could do like testing of your models. We found the first model we did was 85% accurate, which was not too bad considering there's COVID data in there. So it could have been even higher if we did it. If we did it in 3 years' time, it probably even been in the 90s. But then we actually did this. So this was in Python. That actually works. So we did it, and it was actually a video that we played in the actual call with the client. But we played it where you could go in and you click a button, and it will just tell you by student. So you put like a learner code in, so whoever it was, and it would tell you their prediction score for them passing or not, based on all the factors that you see here: age, gender, nationality, rank, course, etc., etc., etc. Because we saw that when we did our exploration sessions, that some courses were being failed more than others. So we built that into the model as well. And then we basically built a probability calculation. So some would be 93, some would be 55, some would be whatever. But it was done, and this is what got us like a lot of high marks in the thing, because it's done by student. It was because the actual brief was to say, can you give us enough insights that will guide our thinking onto what you do? So I think, I didn't see anyone else's work, but I think that a lot of the people did analysis of data to then say this is a factor, that's a factor, and we built an actual model, a live model per student, which from what I was told, no one ever did before, which is nice to know. I didn't do it myself, so I will not take any credit for this model. I did the document and did the business case, but it just goes to show, if you put the effort in, and one of the guys, a guy called Emery, actually really smart guy, he went out and did a bit more extra research and worked a bit more with the actual tutors as well to test the model and check it first. So although you've got data in front of you and you've got a whole curriculum in front of you, going out and finding more stuff, external data, external things, that will get you even further as well. So this is what we did. So we built the risk score, and we basically gave people the risk numbers. So this is now into phase 2. So we built phase 1, which you just saw, but then into phase 2, we then realized that you could have a static version of a model, which is just demographics and courses and whatever. But actually, as we know, as I said earlier, attendance is the big thing. So again, in our data cleaning and our data initial assessment, anyone who had, I think, below 68%, I think it was 69%, of attendance had a massive chance of failing. And it was almost like A and B. As we found we did some Tableau work as well before we went to Python, just to clean up the data. So we basically built a risk score based on attendance and on grades as well, because you get graded every couple of weeks. So if you had high attendance, below average, you'd be run risk, normal average, normal below, etc., etc., etc. And we built it into an actual model. We also did this in Python. So we looked at things like what's the most important thing in the model. So you can do some coding and you'll learn this. Is kind of assessing your own models within Python. So then it says, of the things that we had in the model, risk group, which you saw in that first bit, that was the most important factor for passing or failing within the model that we built. And then we gave all the code and everything, so they saw all that coding as well. And then we did it again. So this was phase 1, phase 2. So then we had all these other bits in here as well. So you see term, course, risk score, expected hours. Expected hours was the contact hours the student would get from the teachers in that actual school, in the actual center. Then attendance, grades, etc., etc., etc. So quite a lot more. And then they would have an updated risk score that would update every single week. So as soon as anyone in the center updated these expected hours, course attendance, and grades, the score would update itself every week. So then all of a sudden, study group now have a live working model that they can go into every week by student and by center and by teacher even, to then say, actually, you've got this risk of this student. So when we could also, we didn't actually do this, but we suggested they build this into a notification internal system where if anyone goes below 85, 88, 90, whatever, then they would get a flag. So that teacher would get a flag to then say, this student is now high risk because they've been not attending, so go and do something about it. So that's the early warning system that we built, which is a direct answer to the brief that said the bits along the journey and everything else. So we didn't just tell them where people drop out, we give them a real working thing, people drop out. And I have basically built this exact thing and productized it and put it into what would be a business for my business I've just started. So things like, it's essentially propensity modeling. So I've taken a very similar logic to this to then go to travel clients, but obviously the data is different, but things like currency rates and flight paths and cost of travel and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And to then build a similar kind of thing that then informs media planning and creative messaging and pricing and all this kind of stuff. So there's a real practical use for what I've already learned in that 6 months that I've now productized and commercialized and make a business out of, or at least part of a business out of. So the speed of which I learned and then to then build on was like a month. So that was really good. And then we also had this, which was the eligibility probability. It's much harder to say than it was to code. But then this basically gave you the percentages of your grades and your attendance and said, if you get to this number, then you basically, we built a model that basically you massively shoot up in your likelihood to pass. So, and what grades you would get. So we were able to then give study group the exact, to like literally to the 0.1% probability by course attendance to say, if you get every single student to get to at least X percentage of attendance, they will be 10, 15, 20% more eligible to then pass. So it's a real practical, tangible business use case that we gave to them. So then they could go to their centers and say, make sure your kids get this grade and that attendance. That's a real simple business case that we, again, I don't think anyone else had done prior to us, just to know kind of different assessments. And so then we kind of applied a bit of a life cycle, a bit of a business case to this. Or there's quite a lot in there already. But then we said, these are the things you need to do. So this is how to actually utilize a model in your business. Number one is to screen, so like pre-screening. So when you get people in, you can then understand who's got the highest likelihood of dropout. So you then just go and nurture those kids and make sure that they are, if it's a language thing, if it's an age thing, if it's whatever it is, then just go and find those high-risk students and just get a support system around them as early as you can. Particularly as a lot of those kids are international kids, so it could be a language thing, it could be they're away from home, it could be all sorts of things. Just go and spend this 10% of kids, go and do everything you can to make sure they're comfortable. Secondly, it's to provide those intakes, though, but also the pre-screening, so understanding who, what, when. Then the early warning system. So we basically said within the first 4 to 8 weeks, you then transition from the first model, which is static, through to the more dynamic model, because that's what the data is telling us to do with like dropouts and attendance, everything else. So by around about a month in, you're going to get a good enough data set for an attendance to then say good or bad, like do something about it. And then from an ongoing basis, we said just use this every week. So make kind of, and again, this is where we get a lot of good marks is, we said stuff like, have your weekly meetings internally, have this as an agenda point in that meeting, because then it encourages adoption, actually forces adoption in most ways. And so with every business, with every product, with every data thing you're trying to do, understand it, and this is what the course is also really, really good at actually, is understanding the business case to say you are presenting to business people, you're presenting real business challenges, and you need to make sure that you've got real use cases and adoption, which is what we did for this. And then post was like model refinement and marketing. So every new year that comes in, COVID is further away from us, so the model will refine itself. But also we said things like, if we had that data set that you don't have yet, it would be even better. If we had that data set that you do have, but we didn't have it, and it doesn't really structured very well, if you refine that, then it would be better. So we then gave actual recommendations around what to do in the business as well, which again got us a lot of points, and the client was really happy with that. And then we talked about marketing, which is what I then productized into my own thing, is, things like lookalikes of audiences to just off your top 10% of students. refine a bidding model based off what we already said. So all these practical elements as well. And then feeds itself. So that model feeds back into the screening, and then the whole process works and works and works. So then we became business consultants really quite quickly rather than data analysts. And again, that's what we, so my tutor was called Devasha. She was really, really good at this. Really, every single time we talked to her, she said, remember the business case, remember this every single time. And so that was really, really good. And then we did some business recommendations, which I won't bore you with right now, but stuff like build segments, build models, ramp up learnings, observe students in this school because this school's better than that one, and et cetera, et cetera. So we give real clear recommendations. And we also then gave data recommendations to say, this is the gap in the data, we need this and that and this as well, which the client actually said to us, having those two different recommendations is really good, because one was business use case and one was for the data team, and they could then go to the business and do that. And then lastly, like I kind of touched on earlier on, this is not part of what we presented. This is my recommendation for you guys, based on what I just said. But what we did really, really well, which got us, I think, a lot of points, but also got us a really nice process, a really harmonious environment, was, like I said, playing to our strengths, storytelling, business case, marketing, media, all that. I've done 20 years of that. So I basically took all the work we've done and built all the reports, built all the presentations, knowing that other people who are not as comfortable as presenting are very good in data. So we just dialed up and dialed down skills. So something I say a lot as well is, don't try and spend all your life, which is ironic that I'm saying this because that's opposite to what I said earlier, but don't spend all your life trying to make your weaknesses into strengths because you're just naturally good at something. If you want to get something from, if they say you're 10 out of 100 at one thing, yeah, get that up to 20 or to 30. Don't get up to 90. You're never going to do that. If you've got something that's a 70 and you get that to 95, you're already good at it. So just do that and make sure that you do that better. So what I did is I played to my strengths, knowing the coding and doing that. I got 0 to, I'd say 30, 35, but I got my 70 to a 95 because I could then explain this. So they work together. So do that and play to your strengths and really double down on that. Laying out the roles early on, like I mentioned, which is kind of the same as number one, but roles and responsibilities and leadership, teamwork, giving everyone their own responsibilities. We actually did 2 subgroups, a data team and a story team, like a business team. And then number 3, like I said earlier on, just enjoy it. I mean, I really love doing this. I think the business cases were really interesting. Applying it to marketing was something that I personally really loved because that's my job. But the coding was interesting, just seeing those charts actually. When I first saw the model that one of the guys had built, I looked at it, I was like, this is honestly one of the most amazing things I've ever seen in my life. So embrace it, enjoy it. It is good fun. Although sometimes it won't feel like that if you're rushing a deadline, you've got Python that's struggling to work. But the other thing, don't leave it till the last minute. I could do that for an exam. I could wing it for a business exam when I was 18 years old. You can't do it for codes. So make sure you do it in steady progressions of weeks. Otherwise, you'll be rushing around till 3 in the morning trying to get a code up and running, which I did in the first one that I never did again. So don't do that. And that was really it. So like I said, where I am post-program, I've now built a business. This is a very quick snapshot of the business. So it's called Nodal because a node is an intersection between 2 data points. So I actually got the name inspired somewhat from the course. That one in the middle is essentially my pitch slide for what you've just seen. So the model, the live working model that we've just seen, I've now been able to productize that, commercialize that, and apply it to different verticals. So the educational one is obviously just written itself, but for travel is one. We've got one for retail, we've got one for B2B, we've got one for tech, we've got for all these different verticals with a very similar concept of what I learned in this course. To then be able to say to a client, actually, this market is it's not like a probability to pass, but it's the propensity to buy. So I've just I changed it out and commercialized it a little bit. And then on the right hand side here is a product, you can't really see it very well, but the actual product we've built, or one of the products we built, is an AI reporting tool for businesses. So rather than businesses sat there to do reports all day long, which has been the most of my life in business, we basically automated all of that through some AI partners, and I didn't do this myself. So don't expect to be writing an LLM within 6 months. You're not going to. But some AI guys that I worked with, they built out something with me and some MarTech guys that I already knew, and we basically built out an AI marketing optimization. So it's like reporting, optimization, and insights, all within one, what would be an LLM for clients. And so now I can, again, there is a bit of an AI masterclass stuff in the course. It's not the focus, but there are, I think, four lectures with
Yeah.
external people. And what I learned from those helped me do this. So if I had not done this course, I wouldn't have a business, to be pretty blunt. I wouldn't know the first thing about doing this. And I wouldn't even have the idea to do it in the first place. And with the business, already I've launched it last week. Yeah. What day is it today? Yeah, Tuesday. Yeah, a week ago. No, 2 weeks ago today. 2 weeks ago today, I launched it officially. And I've already been in pictures with a top 5 car brand in the world, out of Singapore, that I'm partnered with. I've already about to sign, or hopefully about to sign, a hotel group in Hong Kong. And I'm meeting the owners of that business on Monday to then try and get it over the line. And a lot of what I learned here, I put directly into those pictures. Things like clustering, things like causal impact testing, all these things that I've learned. So now I could go into that pitch and say, you think your customer is this, but actually your customer is this. And so again, I'm applying the story to it, but I'm actually using what I've learned in the course, which I would never be able to do at all until I did this. So the more you lean into it, the better it will be. And yeah, if this business gets off the ground, I could safely say that this would have changed my life just doing the 6 months, of course. So yeah, quite a lot in there, quite a lot to learn. But we just jumped in 2 feet, and it could potentially, like I said earlier on, having this dream of running my own thing for years. This really was a facilitator for me to get to that point, because I would just be sat here just being bored and depressed in my own job now if I wasn't done that, to be honest. So yeah, I do recommend it to anyone, honestly.
I mean, what an impact. Firstly, thank you for sharing your experience with the projects. But I started the call with talking about the goals of the program being around helping individuals achieve their unique outcomes. And you've done an incredible job over the last hour of actually highlighting and storytelling, as you're very good at, the impact that it's had for you. So really, really appreciate you sharing that. We're pretty much on time. There are questions, and I'd love to just do a bit of a speed round and get to a few of them. And then I'll manage the kind of the enrollment specific ones as you jump off, Tim. But just a couple of questions here.
Yeah, I don't mind sticking on for those ones either, to be honest. I'm happy to.
Oh, cool.
I've got time, so don't worry.
Perfect. Thank you. So a couple of kind of content specific ones that would be good just at a high level from you. So do you learn any machine learning concepts in this course?
Yeah. So the kind of the model that I mentioned was all done through machine learning. Yeah. So we did quite a lot of that. We touched a little bit of AI. So the one thing that we don't really talk about is like LLMs, because that's the whole different thing. That's not going to be 6 months. But we learn machine learning in Python. We learned quite a little bit of that. So there's that model that I showed you is basically machine learning. And we got to that within 6 months. Actually, within 3 months, because that was the second half of the course. The first 3 months is SQL.
Perfect. Thank you. And then to couple that, what tools are taught during this course?
For us, we learned relatively advanced SQL. Python was the major focus, which was quite fun, actually. Quite enjoyed it. And we did a bit of R as well. So R for the visualization stuff. So there was one in the first presentation we did, like a correlational matrix and other things like model visualizations. That was in R, which R was quite handy, actually. I quite enjoyed it. And yeah, Python was the main one, with SQL being the first one.
Well summarized. I don't have anything else to add to that. How many hours of training or tutorials are there per week? And then is there any focus on ETL or data warehousing?
So we had a 1 hour session on Thursday and Friday, which for me, I think was 7 p.m. So it would be about midday UK time. But I was in one of the groups, and I think there's like 4 or 5 different things, I think, within the week. So mine was 1 hour, one Thursday, 1 hour Friday. there was a couple of sessions with like a Monday, Tuesday, like an AI masterclass would come in separately. But then, so a lot of it is, I mean, to really do well in the actual content, I spent about 6 to 10 hours a week generally. I do an hour and a half, 2 hours in an evening in the weekday, and I do about 3 or 4 hours on a Saturday, Sunday, especially when you got to crunch time. The first bits of it are okay, but then you ramp up a little bit. So you could do it if you did 6 hours a week, probably just about scrape through, but I did about 10 to 12. Occasionally did 20 if I was really kind of confused, but it's manageable with a full-time job. I mean, I was doing a full-time job, and I was doing this, and I was doing setting up business as well at the same time. So I'd imagine do all three. So you can fit it in. Yeah, it's not overwhelming.
Yeah, it's very much designed. I mean, the vast majority are working full time alongside this. We recommend an average of 20 hours of study per week. Once you're in the groove of things and you know what works for you, learn from Tim's mistakes. You don't want to be up at 3 a.m. Trying to figure out Python code. Stick to the recommended hours. Be consistent. That should give you the best opportunity to complete.
Yeah, on the ETL bit as well, I forgot to answer that bit. There is a bit of a mention around data warehousing. We touched on it a little bit. ETL stuff, there is a little bit of a section around ETL. But in terms of, we did one thing around, I think it was Snowflake, I think. So there's a couple of bits, like additional bits that we can then go and find, or there was, I think there was a course, like a separate course or a separate talk that we were recommended to go and watch around Snowflake and data warehousing if you wanted to, but it wasn't a core part of the course. It was just kind of like, here's some other stuff you can go do in your own time if you want to. So yeah, data warehousing actually is a big component of the business that started with that cloud platform, Google and AWS and stuff. So there were directions of where to look for it, but it wasn't a course part.
And then really there's two more quick ones. So William's got 2 years of experience with SQL and Power BI, but looking to learn more advanced ways of analyzing data. Is there a statistical focus in this course?
Yeah, and that was probably the hardest bit that I had. The third, so module 1 is SQL. Module 2, I think, is when you start Python. I forget. Module 3 was really tough. So that was when the statistical stuff came in, and that was just some people were like flew at it because they'd done statistics before. I had to kind of learn a bit of statistics and a bit of Python as well. So there is that module 3 is the heavier statistical focus. That's when you do much more around yeah, there's some stuff around natural language processing as well. So you have to learn some statistics around that and how to take unstructured data into structured data and do that. Yeah, so there's about, I think it's 4 chapters of module 3 were really statistical, really heavy. So yeah, there is a bit of that. Again, not unmanageable. It was enough for me to figure out, but it took me, it was definitely 25, 30-hour week that week for me to figure out all the stats. And I did business studies at school, at university. So some of the stuff that I'd read, and I was like, oh yeah, I know what this is. And I'm sure I've done a version of this. And I actually did level 1 of CFA years and years ago. And a lot of the statistical stuff in that was in this. But then when I read it this way, I was like, okay, I need to read this like 5 times because to get my head around this. So yeah, that's the most challenging part of it. And it is there, yeah.
Yeah, and William, in your circumstances, 2 years of experience with SQL and Power BI. I mean, SQL is predominantly focused on in course 1. There's 2 other courses in the employed project. So looking at what you've highlighted in your profile, I think there'd be an ample amount that you're going to take from the program. But yeah, would be good if you haven't, book a time with an enrollment advisor so we can understand the circumstances a little bit further. Final one for you, Tim, is there was 2 questions on this. Would you say this course is ideal for beginners?
Yeah, I was a complete beginner before I started. I'd never opened SQL or Python before in my life. Oh, yeah. So, so yes, it's because again the transition from start to midway it is smooth as you get in. And also, you, like everything, you get out what you put in. So the actual self-learning stuff opens up every week. So it's not just like, hey, here's module one, crack on, see what happens. It's more like, this is module 1.1, then that's for the week, and then module two goes out the week after, the week after. So you do kind of get to pace yourself, and you also have like success managers that we worked with, so that they help you along the way as well. And the first 2-3 modules, they're all right. You read it and you go, okay, this makes sense, complete sense. And then when you get it progresses as you go through. So yes, if you are a fresh graduate, if you are a complete beginner, if you've never even seen code before, you will still be able to do well. Yeah.
And Honora, you've asked a question around would this be suitable for fresh graduates? So yeah, we have a pool of fresh graduates per program. You need to meet entry criteria, which I can briefly touch on, but also book time with your EA to chat about it. But we have had people that would categorize as career starters, people in the early stages of their career start and successfully complete the program. So can be viable for you. You just need to either have at least a bachelor's degree with a unit of quantitative studies. If you don't have that, we look at 3 years of work experience dealing with data to some extent. Alternatively, there's an aptitude test that you can complete. It's 30 minutes, it's 30 multiple choice questions. If you get 50% or above, then you're deemed eligible too. But we'd want to really understand your circumstances first to see if it aligns and what pathway you could go down if you do decide you want to apply. I can answer the rest of the questions in a moment. Greatly appreciate your time, Tim. I've loved hearing from you. The impact has been incredible, and that's what keeps us going here, is getting to hear stories like yourself and the real world impact that it has had. So thank you so much.
Yeah, no
Business.
worries. And there's one little bit to add as well. I completely forgot to say is the career development, because I saw a question around that. The other massive thing that was a real help to me is the career coaching that is on top of that, which I didn't actually really know or expect before I started. But the career coaches, they are kind of also, because they're kind of independent coaches, they're a little bit kind of self-employed as well. So I was asking a few questions around positioning, around this, around that, and speaking to someone who's on that journey and knows a bit about the course and has their own thing, that also was a massive boost for me to start my own business as well. So if that, yeah, that's another thing you don't get anywhere else, is someone who will help you. Things like writing out a business plan, things like putting together timelines, things like understanding how to look at revenue generation, look at like pipeline, all this stuff. And so even put a business plan to go to, I've just actually applied for a grant, a government grant in Hong Kong. And one of the whole things is, what's your projections of revenue? I had no clue how to do that at all. And I worked through it with my career development person who was assigned to me for this. It was fantastic, and did all those things. So even that side of it is really, really, really important and really helped me as well. So that's the one thing I just forgot to say as I was going through that. But yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I could recommend it to anyone. And the guys have all been fantastic from start to finish.
Yeah, thanks for jumping in on that. It's a huge part of the program. You can have all the skills. If you can't showcase those effectively, depending on whatever your career outcome focus is, that's half the battle. So, as Tim's highlighted, they'll empower you with the skills and tools you need to achieve your outcome. So, yeah, career outcomes are the core focus of the program. Once again, thanks so much, Tim. Look forward to hearing about the growth of your business.
Yeah, I will let you know. If anyone wants to add me on LinkedIn or ask me any more questions or anything like that separately, then let me know. Then I'm very easily discoverable. But yeah, go for it. And I've had a great time as well. So thank you. I will leave you to do the admin.
Thank you.
Take
Thanks,
care.
Tim.
Thank you very much. Speak soon. Bye.
Right, team, I know we're over. So we'll get through these remaining questions so you can go about your day. So what kind of support is available as far as career development? Tim's touched on that as well. What is the costs of the course? So it's £8,395. And then we have a range of flexible payment options that range from an upfront payment that qualifies you for a £700 fee reduction. And otherwise, we have interest and fee-free payment plan options that can range from 6 months up until 24 months. The 24-month option does have some eligibility criteria around that. The best thing you can do, again, is book a time with your enrollment advisor, complete the eligibility survey beforehand as well. Gives us a great opportunity to have a really meaningful, relevant, detailed conversation with you and support you that way. Are all the classes recorded, and how long will I have access to them? So you'll have access to the course content for up to 12 months from the beginning. So the program's about 6 to 7 months, and then you'd have the remainder of the year to access the content. All live sessions are recorded. If you can't attend live, you can watch them recorded. It's not a requirement that you attend all live sessions or any. It's up to you. It's recommended because of the value it does provide. Pardon me. At the moment, they're generally, well, they'll always be midweek, but they're of a lunchtime. So, it could be, say, from 12 to 1, Tuesday or Thursday, for example. So try to make it accessible as possible, but record it obviously for you to access at any time. And then there's asynchronous support you can access. You can put one-on-one sessions with your facilitator. You can pose questions in the student community. As Tim said, he got a lot of value and support out of his student community and the peer-to-peer support that occurs alongside the facilitators. What kind of companies are available for the final project? So we have a pool of partners. You don't get to choose, I don't believe. You actually might as a team. It just depends. I mean, we have large cohorts for this program, generally up to around 100 students. And so we would have multiple project partners. And so you would generally you'll be assigned a team and then a project partner. There may be scope where you can possibly try and influence or request who you would like to work on a project on, but they'll be varied. Upcoming, we've got Project Bank of England. We've done projects with Zumo, Pure Gym. There's a whole range, so they will vary, and they'll change generally each intake. Final question here. Are the slides for the project presented by Tim available to download? Well, the recording will be sent to you, Manuel, which will include the slides so that you can have a look at those. Just in terms of privacy and some of the data in there, I'm not sure that we'll make the slides alone available, but this recording will be, so you can obviously go through and certainly have a look. Conscious of time for everyone. Appreciate everyone that stayed on here. I hope you've had a lot of value out of it. We're really keen to have a chat to you if we haven't already. If you have spoken with us and you're looking at this as a way of making decision to progress, we hope it's been really valuable for you. There's still placements remaining for the upcoming October 14th cohort. It's looking to be our largest in terms of available spots. But it is most definitely going to sell out as well. So limited placements remaining. But best thing is book a time with your EA if you haven't, so we can manage that process for you, set those expectations and try and secure one of those final placements if you are interested. Links in the chat that Sam's posted. Otherwise, yeah, we'll be reaching out. EAs will be reaching out to see how you found the webinar as well. Greatly appreciate everyone in attendance, and we'll see you next time.